So, the Japanese mental health care system and the US mental health care system are pretty different. They each have their own strengths and weaknesses. Japan's weaknesses being that there is a stigma around mental illness, so it's often kept hidden and not addressed, which is a problem. And mental illness is seen more as a physical illness rather than a mental illness. So people often go to their doctors that aren't psychiatrists, have no mental health background, to get prescription medication for their mental illness, which often leads to over-medication, which leads to problems. And there are just overall very limited resources for mental health in Japan. As far as strengths go, there are programs that are starting to catch fire in Japan, like the New Start program. It addresses the country-bound syndrome of hikikomori, which is good for them being in Japan since there's such a stigma around mental illness. So it helps the participants get help without being criticized by society. And there are more programs like the New Start program that are starting to become available in Japan. There's also a home in Hokkaido where 4 mentally ill people decided to be roommates, and now it's expanded, so there are more people, mentally ill people, living in the home, and they don't hide their mental illness, and they participate in society, they have businesses, they have jobs, they talk to people about their mental illnesses, and once a year there's a festival, which is great for working towards eliminating the stigma of mental illness in Japan and raising awareness that mental illness is a problem and there are people that need help, and so they need to work on finding more resources for people. So those are good things happening in the Japanese mental health system. As far as the US goes, its strengths are that there are more resources available for people with mental illnesses. There is psychiatrists who specialize in medications for mental illness, and there's therapy and counselors where people can go to for for help that does not involve medication. There are facilities that people can go to, emergency admissions for patients, and so they're held for 24 hours and then they're released back. So that's good things. Some of them could use improvement, but they're good things, lots of resources for people. And mental illness is accepted in the US, so you don't have to worry about hiding it and not getting it treated because you're worried about what other people might think of you and how that might affect your role in society. As far as weaknesses go for the US, sometimes mental illnesses are overly accepted, few that are arguably overdiagnosed. And then there's the problem of we took away most of the mental hospitals or the mental health facilities where people would be admitted and seen by doctors and nurses at the facility and be kept there, which overall wasn't a good system and it wasn't great for the patients. It could have used improvement, but we shut it down and took it away, which is good because they weren't really good for the patients, but we didn't give them alternatives. So now there's a bunch of people who don't really have anywhere to go because they were admitted in these hospitals. And now the hospitals are gone and they've lost touch with society. So that's a problem. And then as far as reflecting on everything that we did in the trip, starting with traditional Japanese culture, the things that we did with that, we visited lots of shrines and temples, sumo wrestling, which was awesome. One thing I noticed that was that spirituality seems to play a big role in Japanese culture without there being a strong religious identity. Like, the religion is mainly Buddhism, but it's not the same as when you come in to America and people have very strong beliefs in a certain religion, and that's what they believe, and that's what they go to church for, temple for. But in Japan, it's more of, you might believe in it, you might not, but you are probably going to go. It's just mostly a spiritual thing. You go for superstition, or you really want or need something, and so if there's a God out there, you're gonna pray to them and hope that they answer your prayers. Or maybe you are really Buddhist, and so you go there with a strong Buddhist identity. But it's very different from spirituality in the United States, and it's incorporated in a lot of things, including sumo wrestling. I noticed at the beginning of each match, they would throw salt onto the ring, and it was to cleanse the ring from any, like, demons, I think I was told. But yeah, and I thought that was really interesting because you don't see that a lot in sport. So in regards to self-growing on this experience in Japan, I do feel like I grew a lot on this trip. I even figured out when I graduate from college, which I think I'm going to pursue being a preschool teacher, playing with the kids at that preschool. That one day just really inspired me. So yeah, that was my self-growth experience in Japan, and I think that's it. I'd like to end this video by just saying thank you very much for getting me into the class. I know it was really convenient, but I really appreciate it. It was a great trip, and I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot. So thank you, and the end.